Hello, my beautiful bookish friends. Welcome back to my channel. Today, we are going to be doing a reading wrap-up because I haven't done one this year yet, and I want to bring them back around. I am feeling very picky this year, as you guys will see. I am reading through what I have and new books I've bought because I'm not restricting myself from the happiness of buying books. No, we will not be doing that this year. But what I will be doing is getting through a whole lot that I have, a whole lot that I want to reread, etc., etc., etc. So, let's get into it because I have quite a few books to talk about in good ways and bad ways. So, to start off, the first book I finished this year was First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I think everybody and their mom has talked about this book, and now I'm going to talk about it because I loved this book. This was the perfect book to start the year off with because it just flung me back into my love of romance. End of last year, you guys know, I was very down in the dumps. I was not myself. I was just very sad for a multitude of reasons. This book fixed it, okay? This is a single parent trope, which I'm not opposed to. I don't mind a single parent trope. I don't like a surprise pregnancy. But we don't get that with this. We get a single mom who works at a mechanic shop because it's something she loves, she's very good at. And she meets this very grumpy, very jaded radio host who isn't sure that love exists anymore. But by God, does this man yearn. And a man who yearns is a man who earns. There is some spice in this book. Not a ton. Not a ton that I remember. So if you're anti-spice, you would have to skip very little in this book. It is very Sleepless in Seattle. I don't know. It's not a cozy romance. It's not meant to be a cozy romance, but it is cozy feeling. There's this found family. It's a twist on the single parent trope. There's several things in this book that I just love. Like, reading it just made me feel good. And I like that a lot. I did get And Now Back to You, which is the next book in this. And they're doing a third book. So I'm very excited for that. But that all being said, I loved all the characters in this book. There wasn't one that I found annoying or I hated. Like, everything was just good. And it does have little Easter eggs to B.K. Borison's other books, which I was very neutral on Love Light Farms. But I may have to revisit that now that I enjoyed this book. I may have to go back and revisit that one. So yeah. This book, I believe I gave 5 stars. I was right. 5 stars right out of the gate this year. A lovely time had by all. Next one was another 5 stars because it's always a 5 stars because I've read this book 3 times now. Anytime I am in a depressive episode or just need something to remind me why I love reading, we crack out Daisy Jones and the Six. I adore this book. I have talked at length about this book and how much I love it. I love Fleetwood Mac. I love Stevie Nicks. So, of course, I love Daisy Jones and the Six. I loved the show. I did not rewatch the show this time. I have watched the show twice through, read the book 3 times now. I think this was the 4th time. I can't recall. All I know is every time I read this book, I cry. Every time I pick up this book, it is the right place and the right time for it. I love this book to death, and so does everybody else. So if you haven't read it, do it. Even if you're not a Stevie Nicks fan, even if you don't appreciate the songwriting process, if you just love a quick read because it's a transcript, like it's written as a transcript, so it's very quick. Chapters are very short, and you just need to feel something, this is the book. Moving on, I decided to dip into the classic literature pool. I read Frankenstein. Not because of the movie, but because I have this beautiful special edition that has these fancy covers and pages. And I had never read it before. But I'm a horror girly. You guys know I love the Universal monsters. And obviously the Frankenstein movie based off of this book. So I did dip into it. I did not realize how long the story is with how short the book is, if that makes sense. It's a very slow moving story. And there's just a lot. You get the monster's point of view, you get Frankenstein's point of view. There's a little mention of the bride in here, I believe. Yes, the bride is in here just a touch, like a very small part. So I did enjoy it overall. Is it something I'm necessarily going to pick up and read again? No. Is it something I'm going to display with my special edition Dracula that I read last year? Yes. Next, I read A Rogue Thorn, which I do not have anymore on my shelf, so I will insert it here. This book is a Hex Girls Scooby-Doo story. And so I saw this at Barnes & Noble, and I said, give her to me right now. How did I not know this existed? And then I read it, and I was like, maybe this is why. Something about the book just didn't mesh with me. I don't know if it was the way that Mystery Inc. was written, or I don't know. Something just didn't hit. I did enjoy them talking about Thorne's struggle with witchcraft and like not going back into it and shying away from it. It's basically like what happened after Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. And I don't know. It didn't line up. I mean, it retcons like all of the things that Scooby-Doo has actually done itself that I've watched with the Hex Girls in it. So maybe that was part of it, as I was coming at it, looking at like, I thought it was just going to be a fresh story. This is my fault. I didn't read the back of the book. I thought it was going to be a fresh story, and it was kind of like just a different version of it. I don't know. Something about it just, it lost me in like the part where I really thought it was going to grab onto me. So it ended up being a 3-star for me, and it actually already has a brand new home because I unhauled it from my shelf knowing I wasn't going to reread it and sent it off to somebody who will enjoy it more on Pango. So yeah, that kind of started the disappointment slope that we are about to ride. Next one I borrowed from the library as an audiobook. It was Two Can Play, the Ali Hazelwood book that is now in print, but at the time it was still just on audio or just getting ready to come out, and I wanted to see basically, is it worth me picking it up? Glad I didn't. It is a novella, I think. It's only like 150 some pages. It is about these two rival gaming companies having to come together to collaborate, working on this project for this fantasy game that is based off of a fantasy book, very similar to like Lord of the Rings. And one of the developers, she has a very close connection with this story because it's something her and her dad enjoyed together. And she is basically like, I need to be on this project. And if they can't get along with this other studio that they've had numerous issues with, they aren't going to get the project. So it's her and another developer who she thinks hates her. They're at this ski lodge, blah, 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 blah. You know all the romance tropes. I didn't hate this book at all, but I just felt like it wasn't something I was going to come back to. I think if you're someone who enjoys video games, video game development, it's a really great romance. It falls into Ali Hazelwood's STEMinist, nerdy romance thing. It fits her levels. If you're a fan of hers, you're probably going to like this book. But I just didn't feel like I would revisit it. It didn't grab me in ways that other books have. So yeah, I'm happy to return it to the library. Another book that I had started last year, like in 2025, and then had to wait for my hold to come back around to renew it, was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I like Grady Hendrix. I think he is a fantastic horror writer, especially as someone who, I don't really like reading a lot of body horror, or like horror that doesn't make sense. Like, I am a student of horror movies. Like, I like the science, I like the formula, I like the spins on the tropes because I'm a writer and that's what we do. You know, I'm a horror movie nerd. Which is why I say I like, you know, like, I like watching Scream, but I watch it to like study it kind of thing. You know what I mean? I think Grady Hendrix is good at changing those formulas or using them and then switching up the result of those formulas, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I've enjoyed his other work. I really liked Final Girl Support Group, so I was very interested in this one. This one is a rough read, for sure. Given the current state of everything, this was a rough read. It's set in the late 60s, early 70s. is about this house in Georgia that these girls, or Florida, in the Florida swamps, where these girls go because they are pregnant, they are unwed and pregnant. They go to this house so they can go to school still, have their babies, and then go back home and act like nothing happened. So it talks about the different girls that are there, why they're there, how it happened, how they became pregnant, and, you know, basically the very true thing of where these houses force these girls to give up their babies, and the adoption wasn't always on the up and up, and, you know, there are a lot of horrible, seemingly only in America things, which I'm sure it's happened in other places, but it's very prevalent here in America, of these women not having any autonomy. And, you know, some of them wanting to keep their babies and what that meant for them, and, you know, how they would pressure and guilt them into giving up their children. This one talks a lot about labor, and in a very intense, gruff way. When they go to the OB, they talk about, like, how intense those exams were, and back then, I mean, now they're still not great, but, like, back then, how it was just really rough and handled with no empathy, because these girls were seen as, like, dirty and wrong. So it's a hard read. It's a good read, but it's a hard read. And I would say it did drag on a little bit for me. In the middle, I felt like we could have gotten to our end goal a little faster. But yeah, it took a really hard look at a lot of things, and the witchcraft part of it being mixed in there, like, it made sense. Like, these girls had nowhere else to turn, so they turned to witchcraft to try and help them, I think was a really interesting way on showing, like, how this all happened. So yeah, I think it was like a 3.5 star for me, mostly because I had a real hard time with some of the body horror. It's gory. There's some Grady Hendrix level gore. But if you're someone who enjoys, like, feminist literature, I think it is a book and work of fiction that you would enjoy. So then February happens, right? And remember how I was like, I'm gonna read all these books, and this is my TBR, and blah, blah, blah. None of that happened. At all. Like, at all. So, some of that was because library holds didn't line up. Some of that was because I just really didn't feel like picking up a book. February was a roughin'. But I did read 2 books, both of which I felt semi-neutral on. The first one being Let's Split Up, which I think I talked about in my TBR, that I was finishing and getting through, seeing how I felt. This one is a YA Scream meets Scooby-Doo. Now, after watching the new Scream 7, this is very much Scream meets Scooby-Doo, even though this came out way before Scream 7. There are some similarities there, I will say. So, this one, there is this old mansion that is supposedly haunted by this ghoul. These kids go looking for it. The house goes up in flames while they're in it, but they see this ghoul, and it tells y'all all about how it happened, and they are, you know, done. And I want to say it's set in, like, the early 2000s, late 90s, so there is some of that nostalgia in here that makes it very Scream-esque. But basically, this group of teenagers end up becoming friends. New girl comes to town, she gets into their group of friends, and they start solving this mystery. And I think the only really Scooby-Doo part of it is, like, the kids, like, teenagers working together to solve the murder. Also, there's, like, you know, who's under the mask moment. Other than that, this book was very good. I'm going to get the next one, which is Be Right Back. Same kind of thing. There's a mystery, there's a murder, there's, you know, all that fun stuff. I think the only thing about this that I didn't love, and this is nothing against the book, is it is very YA. It's very young adult, which is fine. That's the section I picked it up out of. It's by Scholastic. We love that. I'm just learning reading right now that me and YA are not meshing the way we used to. There was a period of time where I was very no YA, bought a lot of adult books, and then I kind of slowly was like, you know what, I need a little break. I want to go back into young adult. And now I'm kind of shifting. I'm finding there's a middle ground there. So this was nice, a nice mystery. I'll pick up the next one in the series, you know. But you know what, I would say this is truly devious with, like, from, like, a PG to a PG-13. The next book I do not have anymore, and I'm truly shocked I did not like it. It is Not in Love by Allie Hazelwood. Again, I love Allie Hazelwood. This is a new series for her based on, like, it's like the Problematic Love series, I want to say, is like the way that it's worded. But Not in Love still has some sciencey things to it. We have Rue, and I can't remember the guy's name. But what I do know is I didn't love their relationship. Once we started getting into them actually spending time together, and it being this trope of, like, she only has one night stands and he's obsessed with her, and, like, they're secretly connected but you don't know how kind of thing, I was like, okay, like, I'm with you. But then it turned into the, like, she's a terrible person, he's a terrible person, and they could be terrible together. I was not loving that, because none of the things that they proclaimed to be terrible are necessarily terrible. I would say morally gray at best. Morally gray at best. So I wasn't loving that part of the relationship. I enjoyed that they were two people openly communicating, but I also felt like there was a lot of smut for smut's sake in this one. I know. I love a smut. I read Lights Out, okay? Love it. Want to read it again. It was a good book. It just felt like the level of smut mixed with the tonality of everything else. Like, we are talking about some very serious childhood traumas here, some issues. Mixing that in with the smut just didn't feel, not inauthentic, because I'm sure it happens, but it just felt like it was like two different trains coming together and, like, smashing into each other instead of running alongside each other on tracks, if that makes sense. I actually have the next book in the series, which I didn't realize was the next book in the series. So I'm going to give that a shot. That's which one is that? The Problematic Summer Romance. So we'll see. It's kind of set up in Not in Love, so we'll see if I like it. If not, that one's going to go too. But I know a lot of people live and die by Allie Hazelwood, but, like, her last two ones I wasn't, like, super in love with. So I'm almost tempted to reread The Love Hypothesis and Love in Theory. Love on the Brain. Love on the Brain. But I loved Love on the Brain. So maybe I won't, and just leave them where they lie. So now we're to March. We are in the last month of this quarter. And I was like, I need a book that I know is going to check every box off on my list. I need a good romance. I need to feel yearning. I need to feel a man obsessed with a woman. Not that Not in Love didn't have all of that. But I need a little angst, a little yearning, a little something. But I need it in a way that I know I'm going to get it. So I picked up, which I just got it this year, like, right when it came out, Soul Searching by Lila Sage. And by God, did this woman do it, because she never misses for me. Ever. Lila Sage, thank you. I loved this book. First of all, I never read the back of this. I just saw Lila Sage, new book series. It's in Wyoming. It's in the next town over from the Rebel Blue Ranch series. I'm sold. I'm in. Take my money. I did not realize that this is a paranormal romance. Which seems to be kind of a theme for me, is I'm wanting mystery. I'm wanting all of this here. Mystery and angst from trying to solve a goal, but also smut and love and quaint Wyoming towns, apparently. And this book hits, because Collins and her twin sister in this book, that's her right here, can see and talk to ghosts. Love it. Was hooked immediately. And that says it on the back. That's not a spoiler. I was thoroughly impressed with this book. It falls on a different level than the Rebel Blue Ranch series, but the Lila Sage talking about this town, how important the town is, the people in the town, like, the town itself is a character, and I love that. Sweetwater Peak is the town, and that's the series name here. But Collins and Brady together, I loved. He just thinks she's weird, but he's like super cool with that. Love that. Love that he lets her be weird. He lets her be herself. She lets him be himself. And there's this forced proximity, but not in a weird way that I just ate up. So this to me was 5 stars, and I cannot wait for the next book to come out because it's about her sister. I love. But we also get cameos from the Rebel Blue Ranch people because they're connected with Collins's family. So super fun. So yeah, and I don't know, maybe Collins popped up in or got mentioned in one of the other books. Maybe. I don't know. So in March, I kind of really flung myself back into romantasy. So I read The Crown of Gilded Bones, which, yes, a reread for me. This is the Bookish Box Special Edition, by the way. She's gorgeous. I had read this before when I had my old just standard edition copies and had not loved it as much as the other one. I felt like we spent too much time in one place. I feel like I could have skipped 100 pages and not missed a thing. So I still feel that way in a sense, like this was still really long for no reason. Also, I think the binding has separated on this. Oh no. I still felt like it was really long for no reason. And, you know, the end is the end. I won't spoil it because the 4th book, you know, it all kind of comes together. But this one in particular, I feel like we got very little character development and a lot more of like, hey, I'm setting up for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 books because Jennifer L. Armentrout has written a companion series to this and has 2 more books that have come out since the War of Two Queens, which I'm kind of in the middle of. But I also found out while reading this that the next book in the series takes place in modern day New York. And I'm not excited about that. So for me, personally, this series ends with the War of Two Queens, okay? Whatever happens at the end of that book, that is the end of the series. Because A Soul of Blood and Ash is just Cass's point of view, which, don't get me wrong, I love Cass so much. Book, boyfriend, absolutely. You can judge me at free will for that. Don't care. That's how I feel. He's Henry Cavill in my head. If that makes sense, everyone? Yes? Okay. But this one in particular, I feel like was just a setup book. So I don't feel like I need to read everything from Cass's point of view, and I don't feel like I need to read about them in modern day New York, and I don't feel like I can care enough for 2 more books that are over 500 pages. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. Call me a fake reader. I don't care. So then we have another book that I ended up DNFing. I read Alias Emma. I read 2 chapters of this book and immediately decided it wasn't for me. It's a book that my mom picked out and read and said it was okay. It's the start of a young adult spy thriller. And I read the first 2 chapters and I was like, okay, this is kind of like Kim Possible, Totally Spies-esque. And maybe that's what I want right now. And it definitely wasn't, but it also wasn't something that I was like, ooh, I need to pick that up to see where this goes. Like, the first 2 chapters is literally like, here's the person you're looking for, here's who you're going after, go get him, girlfriend. And you could just see, like, everything just with how the spy aspect of it was laid out. Like, her mission was very much like, you're my mission. And not in the Bucky Steve way that I love. You know, like, it felt very like, okay, this is going to be very surface level. This is going to be very YA, and clearly I'm not vibing with that right now, so we're just going to move this book along. So it's listed on Pango if you want it. But I don't have a ranking for it because I didn't read a whole lot of it. So if you would like to read it, by all means. It's a trilogy, I think. So yeah, you can go check that out. Next book, again, another one that I am selling, was The Summer of Broken Rules. This is a YA romance that takes place on Martha's Vineyard. A vineyard like in New England during the summer, during a wedding. This book was cute. It's a beach read. It's an easy one-day read, maybe. It took me more than that just because there were a few slow parts. But the whole book surrounds this girl whose name eludes me. I'm so bad with remembering book character names. Her sister was in a really bad accident and passed away. And this is her first time back at the vineyard where her sister loved and wanted to like live after she graduated high school, near their grandparents. It's her first time back since her sister's been gone. So there's a little bit of grappling with grief, but there's this game called Assassin that they play that is like, we call it water wars where I'm from. You have, you know, super soakers, and you basically have to get your person that you're assigned to out within certain parameters. And so that game kind of takes place. That's what really drives the story, is the game. And she meets this boy who is the stepbrother of the groom, and they hit it off, and they decide they're going to strategize together, blah, 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 young summer love, etc., etc., etc. The book was fine. It was fine. It's just not something I'm going to pick up again. It's apparently inspired by Taylor Swift songs. I don't know. I am not a Swiftie. Sorry. Tomato, tomato. I know. So I don't know what songs in particular. I'm guessing Cruel Summer, just off the top of my head. But it was sweet. It was fine. If I read it when I was 14, I probably would have been like, oh my God. But I'm 28, and slightly jaded. So it was cute. It was fine. It's just not for me anymore. So it has went to the wayside. K.L. Walther's other books I'll probably pick up from the library, but won't necessarily purchase. Editing me here. I completely forgot that I read another book in March, and I read it in 2 days, and I just completely bypassed it on my spreadsheet when I was looking at all the books I sold and like trying to figure out which ones I physically have. I forgot to tell you guys I read Flawless by Elsie Silver, and it's so good. Like, I am on the train. I was in a cowboy mood, and it's kind of kept me in a cowboy mood, so like now I want to read all of her books. But I loved it. It was so good, and people say like the other books are even better, and if that's true, I think I'm going to really love them. It falls in the same realm of like the Rebel Blue Ranch for me, where I read it and was just like, give me more of this, let me eat this up. It was a 4-star for me. I think just based on the other brothers that have been introduced in this series, I think I'm gonna like the 4th book the best, unless it's the hockey one. Whatever one, the brother that like gets deployed all the time, I think that's gonna be my favorite book. But yeah, that was so good. Like, you guys did not lie with that one, and now I need to read like Off to the Races and Photo Finish, like that series, and then the whatever the other one is, Wild Card, and all those. So yes, I am on the Elsie Silver train for sure. Now we come to the rant part of the video. I have never been more disappointed in a book in my life, and I am so upset about it. I truly cannot tell you guys how mad I am that this book is what it is. And not for any, like, there's no, like, political reason. There's no, like, social issue reason. I'm just mad that I paid money for this book and it turned out to be this bad. Okay? I am talking about Throne of the Fallen. Has anyone else read this? I have not seen anyone talk about this book other than me. Look how thick this is. Look how much I was ready to commit to this. I started listening to this book on audio because I was like, you know what? It's a long book. Let me start it on audio because I have this beautiful edition that I got from Barnes & Noble because it is pretty. Let me read it. It's Cara Maniscalco. I'm sure I'll love it. I loved Kingdom of the Wicked. Other people didn't. I did. That whole series, the like, what is it? The Kingdom of the Damned or whatever. I love all those books. Let me read it. Blah, 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 blah. You know, this is a continuation of the series. It's about the other Princes of Hell. And apparently, I'm very much in the mood for Princes of Hell kind of things right now. And I hated this book. Like, I try not to say I hated a book. I try not to say it was bad because I'm a writer and I wouldn't want people to say that about my book and blah, 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 blah. This book was bad. This was so much smut for smut's sake that I could not take it. And I am fine with smut for smut's sake. Don't get me wrong. But it needs to be done in a way that makes me care about the characters. Like, make me care about the characters first, and then smut the entire rest of the way. I'm down with you. I could not have cared less about this book. I remember Prince Envy from the other books. I liked him. I thought he was compelling enough to read about. But not this much. There is so much in this book, because they reference it in the other series about this mortal that he was with, and he gave her this thing, and now his court is in peril, and now he's getting involved with this other mortal girl who's in, like, on Earth, like what we would consider like Earth. And I'm like, okay, so it's gonna be kind of similar but different because it's a different brother, and it kind of does that, but not really, because there's, like, this game that's supposed to be being played, and she's the key to the game. And I'm like, all right, I got you. Like, very Caraval, very Phantasma. I'm with it. I'm down. I'm hearing what you're saying. And this took that little thread and threw it away. Like, everything's supposed to be set around this game. That's the whole setup, is, like, this person dies because there's a clue, and, like, Envy needs that clue, and this girl is the key to everything, and okay, so he takes her, and they have to start working together. I get it. There's, like, a little Bridgerton aspect to it, too, because, like, her social status will be compromised if she doesn't agree with him, but all of that literally stops mattering by page, like, 100. Like, that whole social aspect and that kind of thing we like about Bridgerton, poof, gone as soon as they get to hell. You hear this much about Envy's court, like, being in ruins, and you have this horrible, heart-wrenching scene, and then poof, none of that matters again until page 500. Like, so much of it in here was just apparently not important. And the smut scenes made no sense. I didn't like them as a couple, and it also felt like A Court of Thorn and Roses was just shoved into the middle of this book. It was like, here's Carrie Maniscalco's idea, here's A Court of Thorn and Roses, here's the rest of Carrie Maniscalco's ideas. And well, my phone cut me off as I was saying I don't like A Court of Thorns and Roses and how much I didn't like this book. So, I think you guys get the point. Apparently, my phone says that's enough out of you. So, I'm done ranting and raving. I am in the middle of the War of Two Queens. Hopefully we'll finish that at the beginning of April. And then I don't really know where to go from there. I gotta pick a new physical read. I think I'm gonna just keep the reread train going, or maybe some of the new books I bought, which I will have a haul eventually for those. But yeah, that's it.